as you get older and more confident in yourself, you start to question. So I just wish I would have questioned earlier. And Bitcoiners should really be the questioners. We should really question everything. And if you hear something and it sounds really good, don't be so naive to just jump on it or to defend things just because it's coming from a Bitcoiner that you love and respect. Question everything. There are very few people we should trust without verifying.
Today, I'm excited to welcome Michelle O to the podcast. Michelle is an independent thinker, hodling Bitcoin since 2017 and co-founder of the Bitcoin Army community on X. She's a dog lover and queen of satire. Welcome to the Bitcoin Edge, Michelle.
Thank you so much, Paula. I appreciate you inviting me to be here.
I'm really looking forward to learning more about you. I've seen so much of you on X and your wonderful community. But before we get to that, tell us a little bit about yourself and your Bitcoin journey.
All right. Well, as you said, I've been hodling Bitcoin since 2017. I think a lot of people don't know much about who I am as a person. You can see I'm a middle-aged woman. I've raised 3 children, have 2 grandchildren, and I love dogs. I've had Akitas for years. And right now I have 7 American Akitas. Love them like family. They're probably closer to me than my family. I'm a big gardener too. I love to plant things. I love to nurture them and kind of see them grow. It makes me really proud to be able to do that. So I do a lot of gardening around the house, many, many flower beds. I've grown pecan trees. I have some old pecan trees in my yard. So gardening is a big part of my life as well. And so my Bitcoin origin story is very interesting because I sort of just stumbled upon Bitcoin. Years ago, I had a big issue happen in my life. So my ex-husband had some credit issues and he didn't take care of them in a timely manner. So what happened was we had a joint bank account at the time, and what happened, um, our account got frozen because he, delayed his obligations to take care of that, and it completely devastated me. So first of all, I was pissed off at him because how could you let this happen to the family? Blah 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 blah. And then, over time, I became less pissed at him. And it was more like, how does this happen? How does the bank allow this? How come I didn't know it would have happened just because I share an account with him? And it just got me thinking a lot about banking and our freedoms. And then fast forward years later, I had a friend who introduced me to Bitcoin through multi-level marketing, and that was in the early 2017 era. And I think there were a lot of those types of scammy things going on back then. I mean, if you remember BitConnect and all that, it's kind of the same, but it wasn't BitConnect. He knew actually a pretty good amount of information about Bitcoin, and it made me curious from the decentralization aspect, the no intermediary aspect, because of my experience. Other than that, I wouldn't have had any idea why this would be important to me. And of course, number go up was a big part of that conversation. So what I started to do is just think about, well, how could I get Bitcoin without going through this multi-level marketing scheme? And so I went on YouTube and did my little research there, and I ended up finding Coinbase, and and then I bought some Bitcoin. So I didn't pay attention to it for a while, and I think the fall of that year, all of a sudden that Bitcoin I bought had gone up multiples. And I was like, whoa. So then I was convinced that it was never go up forever. Nothing stopped this train. Because I would see, I literally watched Bitcoin just look like the numbers were just flying on Coinbase, and it was wild. So what did I do? I called all my friends, my family, my coworkers, everybody. And I told them about Bitcoin. They had no idea what I was talking about, but all they heard was I made this much amount of money in this period of time. So a lot of people bought Bitcoin at that point. And then the big crash came, and it scared the crap out of me because I was watching the price just free fall. And there were really glitchy things that would happen on Coinbase. Like I remember the price going from like 16,000 to 9,000 in within minutes, and then it would pop back up, and I was like, "Whoa, what is going on here?" So I was nervous. I was panicking, but I never sold. I don't even think I knew how to sell. So what it did was then force me to understand what I bought. And so I started to do my research, like more than just looking up price prediction videos on YouTube. Because back then, that's a lot of what I did. That's how I researched and tried to understand what I was buying. So I did my research. I started to find people who were talking about Bitcoin from a fundamental standpoint. I really also understood that X was probably my best resource to find people who were talking about Bitcoin in ways more than just number go up. And also, when things did happen, like if you saw a movement in price and you went on X, you probably found out why that movement happened. And there really wasn't any other credible sources talking about Bitcoin. And so that's sort of how I got into Bitcoin, my experience with it, and then how I came to X to really expand my knowledge there. And at some point in time, Paula, it was December of last year. I was just like, I kind of have a voice in Bitcoin. And so I started posting more about Bitcoin, just kind of going off of what I was learning and how I was seeing Bitcoin. And you can really see my evolution go from Bitcoin, even shitcoining. I still have some shit coins I need to get rid of. And into this understanding of sovereignty and how we can get there and what that does for us as a society. I really appreciate the entire journey that I've had with Bitcoin.
Your journey is very similar to mine too. I got in through multi-level marketing. I couldn't figure out how to get out, so I bought the initial GBTC and saw those big price fluctuations and then sold at the bottom. So I was worse than you. And yeah, so but I really relate to your story because those were valuable lessons because it made me go and learn more about Bitcoin when I saw that happen. And also it was a touch point. And when before we started, you were saying a little bit about, yeah, you don't feel like you're an expert, but you have a huge following on X and you have wonderful posts. Today, you mentioned you wanted to talk about how Bitcoin levels the playing field for everybody. And I love that. But before we get there, why did you want to talk about that?
You know, part of the reason I'm so passionate about our community is because I think, and when I say community, I mean the Bitcoin Army community. I think there are many voices that are very loud and prominent, and those voices at times I feel like are lose the way. They've lost the forest through the trees, and they can steer people the wrong way. And I think the best way to message Bitcoin is a collection of voices that have many different perspectives and bring to the table many different life experiences that help people to better understand it. And one of the things that really resonates with me is Jeff Booth's statement around the natural state of the free market is deflation. And then I've heard him say this, I think, on one of your podcasts, and I think with Natalie as well, that most Bitcoiners are actually thinking the exact opposite of that. And if that actually did happen, we would be, that would be counterintuitive to what we're really doing. And I think people in general, humans, are naturally good people. But there is one evil aspect of us that I believe is that the root of the evil is self-preservation. So everything that drives us in a negative way, for example, when I say self-preservation, as Bitcoiners, we know that money printing is bad, that it's really moving more and more money from poor and up the ladder to people who have assets. We know that. We know it's hurting people, and yet deep down inside, we wish it to continue so that our bags get bigger or get fuller. And so that is honestly, when you look down and you peel that onion, there's some evil to that. And the root of it is we're trying to all preserve ourselves. And so Bitcoin as a standard does less of that. There's always going to be people who have less and people that have more. But when you are on a deflationary money and when you fix the money, then you fix most of those problems. And we all get put on a level playing field. So you really do have equal opportunity in the world. Like education improves. Every aspect of humanity improves when the money gets better. And some might say, well, that's their problem and not mine. Again, here goes that ugly evil again. But it is all of our problem because we have to pay higher taxes to account for that for people who have less, because our money in taxes are just going to people who have less. We have to worry about how the crime might affect and how it might affect our schools. So we all are impacted by the unequal distribution of money. And so we should all be concerned with how do we level that playing field so that we can grow together as a society and just become better people.
Yeah, I I too follow Jeff Booth, and this morning was listening to one of his recent podcasts for about 2 hours, and the fiat system just seems to corrupt people. And I like that you said it's the self-preservation, and some of that is greed because it we think we need more and more because inflation is eating away our purchasing power. You also mentioned in that I don't mean to go so deep, but if the natural state of the free market is deflation, Jeff also says that measuring in dollars is not necessarily the best thing for the network. How do you feel about that?
I 100% agree, but it's what we have. For most people to understand what he means by that and to actually get on board with that is going to take a lot of time. And, even us, like our journey. In the beginning, I had no understanding of money at all. I didn't even understand money when I bought Bitcoin. I didn't understand money I really probably, if we want to get honest, I probably haven't really understood money until this past year and a half. I was very misguided. I was very much influenced by political agendas. And that'll have you thinking that we're all in this boat because of greedy corporations and billionaires. And so nobody wants to talk about what's hiding in plain sight, which is the money printing, the debasement of the currency, and all of the mechanisms to keep that system going. I'm beginning to understand that so much more clearly now, but I think most people can't get there. Even when I'm speaking to, my friends, family, coworkers, etc., and I've started to go down the rabbit holes, they're like, Michelle, I understood 3 words you said, the rest is gibberish. So, and I speak pretty layman, in terms of monetary policy and that sort of thing. I don't even have big words in my vocabulary. So, if it's hard for them to understand where I'm going, then I think what Jeff is trying to teach us is going to be even harder for most people. But I do believe he is right that Bitcoin is a paradigm shift. And then the years from now, when we finally get there, it'll seem so obvious. But right now, I think it's not as obvious as it really is.
So, do you think part of your mission with your community on X is to help educate Bitcoiners and really help even the playing field for everybody.
Part of my mission with the Army and the community, like my personal mission, is to bring the voices to the table. Because again, I don't think know everything. I don't think I have all the answers, but I do like to ask questions. And in the past, I tended to silently question everything. So most of what you see in terms of my posts on the Bitcoin Army timeline now are in the form of a question because I want to get a discussion going. I want to get perspectives um, out and on the table because I don't think there's just one. I don't think we're all right, or I don't think there's, a lot of wrong. I just think the more conversations, the more we all evolve. Again, my goal is to bring more people to the conversation. There's so many smart people, not just people who have been in Bitcoin for a long time. There are folks who are just coming into Bitcoin, but bring their life experiences, their skills outside of Bitcoin, and they have got awesome perspectives. They've got lots of things to say. So when I look at the Army and my personal mission, it's to push that content so that more people can see it. Because even if they have smart, intelligent thoughts that people should hear, a lot of times nobody sees them. And so our mission as a community is to uplift that content, to get it out there so that their voices can be heard. And I think collectively, as a community, we can begin to shape the narrative differently than what has been shaped in the past around number go up. And I'll just give you a personal experience, like why it's so important to me. I think part of the reason I was so focused in 2018 on number go up was because of all the number go up noise and narrative on Bitcoin X. And even the next cycle, the 2020 cycle, I got caught up in that too. And you know what I was caught up on, Paula? The $100,000 Bitcoin mark. And what it made me do, because I didn't believe the market was done, because I was waiting on $100,000 Bitcoin because that was the narrative, right? And so because I didn't believe the market was done, I was holding my damn shit coins. And I'm still holding some of those damn shit coins. I just need to bite the bullet and move them over. But that is the potential impact of just a bad narrative or a single narrative that isn't challenged by people who think differently. And what I love about the Bitcoin Army community is if you really scan the timeline, it's less about number go up. Sure, we like number go up, but it's less about that. And it's more about fundamentals. Like it's more about why this is important. Because of that community, I now understand that my sovereignty is bigger than short term gains. Like that is huge. And I'd love for more people to get there. So by me helping to use my influence and my following to push that narrative, it helps Bitcoin as a whole.
Yeah, and I see you do a lot of reposts, and one of your reposts was somebody we both know, AA. I interviewed him as well. I know he's part of the Bitcoin Army, and it was just a chart about how prices have gone up since 1971, and a house in those days cost around 25,000. And your post was about how we've been stolen from. Do you think most people realize that, or do you think they think that inflation is normal?
I think they think it's normal. We've been conditioned to think it's normal. We just know, before I really understood any of this, when prices would go up, I was just like, oh, okay, yeah, it's about time. This has been X price for X amount of time. And we know that like technology makes things become more deflationary, and we have to understand. But in general, we accept the fact that over time prices go up. But I don't think that we understand what's hiding in plain sight, which is that our governments, the Fed, the central banks, are purposely devaluing our currency. Like I think there's a small sliver percentage of people that understand that. The people that understand it the most actually have the most money because they understand how to combat it. The people that understand it the least and are looking at, elsewhere to explain it, or to understand it, are the poorest. I mean, that is not by accident. So yeah, when I posted that, first I always get inspired by other people's posts. And I said, you know what? This is really what they've stolen from us. And I particularly chose 1971. Um, and they've stolen this from us because how in the world have prices inflated, this high? And back then, my grandmother, my great grandparents, they could afford to buy houses. My children today, and they're all, in their young 20s, if they don't figure out how to save in Bitcoin, then they will most likely never be able to buy a home. They will be priced out of the market and never be able to buy a home. And so I think about that all the time. And I just think like people will come to understand why they need Bitcoin. They will come to understand the problem, however they come. And it takes all different types of voices to talk about what that problem is, because someone listening to me may not get it or care about what I'm saying, or it may not resonate, but they may resonate with AA, or they may resonate with you, Paula. So I just think it's about all of us coming together and just sharing different ways, like helping people identify what the real problem is. And it's not just your fault. It's not your employer's fault for not paying you enough. It's you're not like your wages are never going to increase at the rate that our currency is being debased. And so how do you fight that? Um, Hopefully we can get them to Bitcoin. But like I said, even if they buy Bitcoin, they're still not orange pilled. And that most people are still not orange pilled. And I think about that, I think even more so than all the other things.
So is that hard for you as a mother and a family member to you want your children to understand, but you can't make them understand? How do you handle that?
Um, Gentle reminders. Uh, I used to not handle it very well. Um, it used to be mom lecturing, sister lecturing, daughter lecturing. And so that really doesn't work and then I start talking over their heads. And I think most of us do. And so, one thing I've done is I've just bought Bitcoin for people and I had them set up wallets and I send them Bitcoin. Some people don't even want the Bitcoin. That's crazy. Because again, they don't understand how it saves them, and what it's really going to do for them. They'd rather me give them something else that they find more valuable right now, even my children. And what is wild to me is that my children have seen me go from paycheck to paycheck, earning good money, but still paycheck to paycheck and worrying about money, to like carefree, not worrying about money, can buy anything I want. And they still don't get it all. They, they still want stuff. They still want to spend. They still live beyond their means. And that's why I say, you can't lecture people. You can't argue with them because they will not hear it. They just move on and continue to do. But something will happen and the bulb will go off. Like for me, I really believe that if my bank account wasn't frozen those years ago, I wouldn't have gotten Bitcoin. I would have still been like, oh, that's too risky. This is multi-level marketing. But the thing that made me curious was the decentralization and then the no immediate, um, no third party. That made me curious because I had that experience. So something will happen. They'll have an experience and then they'll remember all the things and they'll come back.
Yeah. What a great lesson. I so relate. This week I sent Joe Bryan's video to my family because they're British, so I thought, well, maybe they'll relate more to Joe Bryan. Do you know who he is?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
The problem.
yeah, what's the problem video to everybody? And nobody responded. They're not ready. And I just love your reminder. We can gently put out ideas, but Usually it's a pain point that brings people to Bitcoin, or necessity. And that was my story too. Do you think that to really understand Bitcoin, you have to understand money?
Yes, I do think you have to, because otherwise you don't understand the problem. And if you don't understand the problem, you don't understand why you need the solution. So I think you do have to understand money, but also understanding money is a journey. Um, I think I started to scratch the surface maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but my understanding of money today is very different. Um, and I think, 5 years from now, it'll be even more evolved. So I think it's a continuous journey because what they're doing to the money and what impacts a monetary policy is also ever changing and evolving because it has to. Because how else do they keep up this charade? They've got to figure out different ways to keep it going and mitigate the potential for a devastating crash worldwide. And that's another thing. Like we don't even talk about, and I feel like Bitcoiners avoid the conversation of a global economic downturn. They think COVID was one. No, it wasn't. COVID was a damn gift. It was an excuse to do more money printing, more quantitative easing, engage in more of the mechanisms to keep the charade going. A real global economic downturn. How will Bitcoin react in that? And what are you going to do? I think all of these people that think they have conviction today may lose some of that when they see, you know, uh, what if we have a real downturn circa 1929, where it takes nearly 10 years to come back? What if Bitcoin goes down and trades sideways for years and years and years? Well, you still have that same conviction because you believe that it's still, nothing has changed in terms of it being sound money and the best form of money. Will you still have the conviction to hold and continue to accumulate? That is the question. And when I see people going out and leveraging, taking on credit and things like that to buy Bitcoin, that's the number one question in my head. Do they really understand the risk? Not that Bitcoin is a bad investment, but what if something happens on a macro level and it takes a long time for the price of Bitcoin to come back? Are they prepared for that mentally? Because it's a mental preparation you have to do. And would they be able to keep themselves solvent for an unknown period of time? So for me, like part of my journey in understanding money was getting rid of my consumer debt. But I have taken on quite a bit of debt, leveraging my assets to buy Bitcoin only because I understand that, and I had the conversation with myself that if something happens and Bitcoin trades sideways or doesn't perform the way I would like it to perform, am I prepared to just pay these loans off? And the answer was yes, because I got rid of all of my consumer debt. I live well below my means. I'm trying to teach my kids that too. Well below my means, and so now it's just the emotional part that I have to prepare for. But if you're not asking yourself that question, then you're on dangerous waters.
I think that's a great question because even though I have heard that the way things are run these days, the US will continue to print us out of problems. I, one day, yes, Larry Lepard says the big printer's coming because they cannot just let the US default ever. But however, there are other black swan events like a possible world war, which
Mhm.
we none of us want. And on the Bitcoin standard, that might not happen. But something like that could prolong a recovery. So I think that's a really great point.
And we just don't know. There are things that we haven't even thought of that could, you know, come and do some damage. So you have to be prepared for that. And I think we are very wishful and hopeful and kind of naive sometimes as Bitcoiners. And even Paula, if you look at like the majority of Bitcoiners today, most of them are in their mid 30s. So the last time they saw anything, remotely devastating in terms of economy was 2007, 8, and they were children. So they didn't have no bills. Their house didn't go from, go down 40% in value. They didn't have that pain to deal with. So they think everything is fine and gravy and, oh, 30% pullback, we got it, blah, blah, blah. They've not been through anything yet. So every time I hear it, I'm like, ooh, y'all are naive. You got to be mentally prepared. It could happen. Oh, well, Bitcoin is the safe haven. It's the store of value. Yeah, you think that, and I think that. The world has to think that in order for it to hold its value. So I just think we have to really, um, my personal opinion is we can't be so naive, and we just have to be prepared for anything.
Yeah. I think that's a great suggestion. You mentioned that you have low time preference, and one of your posts you said you're not so interested in Netflix, eating out in fancy restaurants, and things like that. Is that because of Bitcoin?
Yes, because when years ago when I was struggling and I was paycheck to paycheck, I was buying new cars. I was, wanting nice things, clothes, all the services, subscriptions. I mean, I had everything. So I was trying to keep up with the Joneses. And now it's like, at some point, some of it is not just that I understand Bitcoin. It's also at some point you get to the age or a time in your life where you have enough. And I got to that place. Maybe it was because of Bitcoin, but I got to this place where I said, I have enough. I don't need all these things. They're actually not doing anything for me anyway. If I'm sad, I'm still sad. If I'm happy, I'm still happy. And so I just got maniacally focused on accumulating Bitcoin. And so that means you can give up stuff. And I don't miss any, I don't even watch TV. So I don't miss anything. I don't miss anything. And I'm also the type of person that tends to, when I'm focused on something, it becomes almost the only focus. Like I can put blinders on everything so that I can go in hard and deep on whatever it is that I'm focused on. Um, that's what winners do. But but I think Bitcoin, because I understand what it is, like I just can't get enough of it. So I don't need all that other stuff.
I love that. I'm so similar. Do you think Bitcoin is an ego journey or an IQ journey?
I think it's both. And I think it could be either at different times in your life. So at first for me, it was definitely an IQ journey. I didn't understand. So I had to educate and I had to become more clear about what it is I was purchasing. And then my ego got in the way, and I thought I could get more Bitcoin by chasing shitcoins. And, in some ways I did. I also lost a lot of money. And then even with MicroStrategy, I think I've been misunderstanding what I was even doing with MicroStrategy. So I started buying when MicroStrategy and then announced that they were in Bitcoin and starting putting Bitcoin on in their treasury. I started buying MicroStrategy. I didn't even know what it was, what the company was. But I just started buying and I thought I was supporting Bitcoin and as time has gone on and I see all of the excitement around Michael Saylor and strategy, it just causes me to pull back and say, hold on. Okay, let's go from fundamentals. What am I buying and why? And okay, I'm buying a Bitcoin proxy. I'm not buying Bitcoin. I'm buying it because I think it'll go up faster than Bitcoin. So I think I'm smarter than the system that I believe we should all be on. And this ain't it. This ain't the system. This is a fiat strategy. And so, I'm really thinking differently now. I don't think MicroStrategy is a bad investment. but I understand more of the risk than what I understood a couple of years ago. And so now I don't want to hold on to it long term. I really think my money should be in Bitcoin, just Bitcoin. There is no, Michael Saylor says it himself, there is no second best. And we think MicroStrategy is better than Bitcoin in some ways. And again, it's that's where the ego comes in.
That is so true. And, I asked Jeff Booth the question, is MicroStrategy on the fiat rails? He said, absolutely. And one day Michael Saylor will also have to choose. So I too own MicroStrategy. And from what I know it's a wonderful investment. I think any company is doing the right thing buying Bitcoin, but are we as individuals, we don't hold that Bitcoin. Yes, MicroStrategy might go up 3 times what Bitcoin will in a bull market, but it'll also come down 3 times more. And if the system has any big issues, that's where a problem could arise, and that could be many years down the road. But I'm thinking the same way as you. And yes, of course, I want to make more Bitcoin. And yeah, it's a bit of an ego thing too. So I really appreciate you saying that.
Thank you. Thank you. But again, it all goes back to this idea of self-preservation. We will do things fundamentally against, everything we believe in because we want more. We're greedy. We want to self-preserve. And so we have to check ourselves from time to time.
We absolutely do. Do you think we're still going to have a cycle with Bitcoin?
I do. Nothing tells me we won't. Just like I think I asked the question a couple of days ago on X. Tell me again why we thought 2020 was a super cycle. And most of the answers are, well, money printing. Um, yeah, but didn't we think that they would raise interest rates? And as soon as you do that, it tampers, everything down. So I don't really see much different. Like we can get into all these complicated monetary things that are going on, but I don't really see anything much different than what we've seen before. I think um, business cycles are always cyclical. And why would Bitcoin not be cyclical as it has been? So until I see something drastically change, money printing is not new. If they do more of it, then it raises inflation, which then they have to bring it back down. So it's part of a cycle. So unless something really changes or there's something I don't know, I really believe we'll continue on a cycle. Now, and some people say, well, these treasury companies will hold Bitcoin up. Well, then the cycle just won't be as wild of a swing. And what if something happens to one of these treasury companies? Because let's also be honest, some of these folks don't have Michael Saylor as CEOs. And you've got shitty companies that are now adopting a Bitcoin strategy and a Bitcoin treasury strategy, but they're still shitty leaders. And so it doesn't necessarily protect all of their sins. So something may happen and there could be contagion around that. We don't know. I'm always operating on an assumption that we'll be in a cycle.
What would you tell people who say it's too late to get into Bitcoin now?
I always say it's never too late. I thought I was late buying Bitcoin over $1,000. It was the best thing I ever did. Even like today, buying Bitcoin over 100,000, I feel even better buying it than when I was buying it at 1,000. And so the bigger Bitcoin gets and the more it gets adopted, the less risk that there is. You're never too late. The other thing that I think people, especially people that don't understand money and investing, they think they can buy Bitcoin one time and hold it and they're going to be a millionaire in, X number of years. We're past that stage unless you buy a lot at one time. So your $100 is not going to be a million in 10 years. But what you can do is you can dollar cost average in and spend $100 a week or $100 a month or $10 a week or $10 a month. And you're going to be much better off in 10 years' time than you are today. And that is the vision that I try to sell.
Yeah, and that's how we even the playing field, right? It's an open source network available to everybody to buy at any time and also to put into self custody and become self sovereign. So, but that is a very that's a journey.
That is a journey. And I don't know that everybody wants to even become self sovereign. I think even if they can just better for themselves, like hold their value of time better for themselves, that's a win. And I don't necessarily judge people for not getting there. And I think we're all on a spectrum anyway, in terms of our knowledge, understanding, and what we actually want. Um, and sovereignty is not everybody's goal. So even if they just buy an ETF and hold it, I'm good with that because you're doing better for yourself.
Yeah, I agree. It's the beginning of your journey. What advice would you give to your younger self and Bitcoiners besides buy more Bitcoin?
I would say question more. Stop believing everything everyone tells you. If you hear something and it sounds interesting, go look it up. We have that available to us now. We have so much more available to us today to question things than we ever had before. Question the question. If I had done that more, I would have been much more further ahead than I am now. And of course, we all woulda, shoulda, coulda. But I trusted so much. I trusted what my parents told me, and they were misinformed. I trusted what the government told me, and they have an agenda, all sides of the government. I trusted what the schools told me, um, and I just ran with it. And then, uh, as you get older and more confident in yourself, you start to question. So I just wish I would have questioned earlier. And Bitcoiners should really be the questioners. We should really question everything. And if you hear something and it sounds really good, don't be so naive to just jump on it or to defend things just because it's coming from a Bitcoiner that you love and respect. Question everything. There are very few people we should trust without verifying. Probably banks and God. But other than that, we should trust but verify.
Love that. So, on that note, do you think there's a spiritual side to Bitcoin?
Oh, I love that question. I'm just getting into that whole conversation, and the folks that really made me think are like Mara, Stacy, um, Alpha Witty, Immortal, all of the Jeeves, all of those folks. I think they have a really good understanding of spirituality in a way that I never did, and it's very interesting to me. And I don't think it's by accident that there's this big group of people that are connecting Bitcoin with spirituality. For me, I don't fully understand it, or I can't even pretend to know. But I do see something there that I'm very interested in understanding better.
Yeah, I like that. Another part of the rabbit hole to dive into.
It's a rabbit hole I want to get deeper into, and some of those folks are, they definitely influence me to think differently. And then, I'm also really religious, a big Christian. So some of these ideas kind of contradict my religious beliefs, which honestly actually makes me want to dive deeper into them. So that's a journey I'll have to continue to be on.
Good for you. So, how has Bitcoin changed you the most?
Honestly, like if I really peel it back, I think I'm different today as I'm more patient. I'm more patient with what people believe and why they believe what they believe and trying to understand their perspective rather than just trying to share mine. And that is growth because that was not me 10 plus years ago. I had an opinion, I wanted to share it. But I think it has really taught me that there's not always one way to skin a cat. There could be 1,000 ways to get there. There's not always one idea that wins. There could be a multitude of ideas that win. And just because you hear important people speaking about something doesn't mean that their way is right. And Bitcoin really has taught me that. I've been able to slow down and really understand fundamentally what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. So patient.
And I also think that's what makes you such a great community leader, a community moderator on X. And is there anything you'd just like to shout out for your community? And also, is that part of your purpose now, your community?
Well, it's a big part of my purpose. I think I did a post on X. Might have been end of December, beginning of January, and I just made a statement that my purpose on X is really to connect Bitcoiners with Bitcoiners, and we'll see where that goes. I just really want to be a part of helping to grow a community, doing something that we really believe in, and I think we do that on in the Bitcoin Army. Like there aren't communities that are doing what we're doing. If you go and you post something in our community, like there are going to be people there that want to see what you're posting and are intentfully looking at the timeline to see what the conversation is. When you join our community, we're going to welcome you. And there are going to be many people that jump in on that welcome. So it just, from the very beginning, you feel something different. And we don't necessarily, like anybody can be a major player in that community. We don't necessarily just think about, like for example, um, we understand that it can't be about one person. And the more that you shine your light on other people, it actually comes back to you tenfold. So we all benefit by giving to others. And that's really the part of the ethos of the community. So I want to shout out Carlin Penner, who is the original founder of the Bitcoin Army. He really opened up the community, and because we started on the timeline, just friends, and we started making these lists that kept growing and growing, and then we realized that wasn't sustainable. So Carlin opened it up, made a community, defined our purpose, and we just continued to grow from there. So we started from zero in December, and now we're over 4,500. Um, we do spaces twice a week. So I just want to put that out there. On Saturdays, we do a space at 11 a.m. Eastern. We talk about technical aspects of Bitcoin. We have a specific topic. And then on Monday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, we do a pleb welcome. So anybody can just get up and talk about whatever they want to, but we like to hear about your Bitcoin origin story and how you found the Bitcoin Army community. So it's very community driven. We don't just do Bitcoin. We've got folks doing push-up challenges, cardio challenges. We have a book club. Um, all different types of things to just build community and people.
Yeah, I've really noticed how wonderful the people are, not only in your community, and I agree your community is very strong, but just Bitcoiners in general. We all want each other to do well. It's the opposite of the fiat world where it's almost like a dog eat dog world, whereas Bitcoiners, we cooperate. It started at the top with Satoshi, who did the most selfless thing and walked away, which in itself is a spiritual act of giving. And yeah, and so I just love your community. I hope to participate more and the spaces when I'm back in the Northern Hemisphere. And thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.